always happy to share my thoughts with any one of you. Of course, today we will do that in the next 1 hour. But again, my contact details are there in the presentation, and otherwise, I'm sure Geeta can help with the same. So I want to make two important points at the beginning. First is that this presentation, I'm using my own thinking as well as I learn from the gurus in this area, two very well-known professors. I can share the names also as we go along. And also my friend MSA Kumar from Cochin, whose ideas, I have also used liberally in my presentation. The second point is that while the focus today is on family business, many of the suggestions for improvement will equally apply to any other business. So therefore, that's something which I request you to keep in mind. So, so these are the contents. We'll keep moving. So family is not an important thing. It's everything. So that's the strong base of a family business. So we must know this is something really crucial as far as a family business is concerned. Now let's see, let's start with a global perspective. How do family businesses fare worldwide? So there's a Credit Suisse report which talks about the relative success of family businesses compared to overall businesses. And it's very clear that the longer term trend, where they've considered a universe of 1,000 family companies, has delivered cumulative better returns in every region and sector for the last 13, 14 years. Also, they have outperformed the broader equity markets in all the key regions. And back home, we have many successful and profitable role models which are part of the Credit Suisse report, which includes, Imami, Bajaj, Tata, Godrej, Marico, Britannia, Ajanta Pharma, and so on, which are significantly profitable companies. In a nutshell, the family-owned businesses are growing faster, they are generating better margins, and have typically low-geared balance sheets. And as a result of all that, they tend to trade at a valuation premium. So then, having seen all the strong points, so what's happening now? Let's see how vulnerable are these businesses today. So many experts feel that almost 40% of the MSME businesses, many of which are family businesses, will not see the end of the current crisis. Of course, we have the government support in words, don't separate employees, financial support can come, some postponements and so on, but really it's not really a support that the MSMEs would like to have. Leading to all this is that the families are having some finger pointing in-house as to, what happened, why were we not prepared, who's running the business, how should the new business be as we go forward, and so on. So that's what is the context for us. Just as a summary, these are all things that I'm sure all of you know, but I still like to share with you. In terms of strengths, the commitment levels, the patience of capital, which means not linking quarter by quarter Wall Street share price as the target, the adaptability, agility, flexibility, the lighter overheads because of a very sharp eye on the costs, and the ability to fill up niches are very clear strengths. But there are some areas where family businesses may not be so strong. Often their size of operation is smaller. Often they are not able to invest so much in technology, and they feel the lack of that. And finally, because of lower size of operations, they may have lower clout, which affects in multiple ways. Now, let's see, to be successful, my point is that governance is key. So for a family business to be successful, it needs to have strong governance. So the first point is any family business needs to take stock of its unique critical resources It could be goodwill, it could be a good distribution network, it could be a history, a legacy, and also some process capabilities. And then we must refine and build further to respond to what is happening today, especially. So there are always three circles in a family business. There is the business, there is the family, and then there is the ownership. So what we are seeing today is that in a crisis period, the stakeholders often behave unexpectedly, which means the alignment gets significantly affected. So let's look at the uniqueness of the family business. Everyone is an expert with their own views and a definite view what will work. Sorry, something. Why is the Amol? Can you take care of this admission business?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My control of moving it forward. Okay. Yeah, everyone is an owner and has an equal right. Mostly in the Indian context, the seniors are given respect. They are considered to be smarter and wiser. But relationships are very critical. One should not end up upsetting anybody. If you see a normal time data, and this is data collected by experts across families, that even in good times, the shared vision in the seniors, the alignment is 69%, whereas in the juniors, the younger members of the family, is only 51%. And if you look at the growth aspirations, the communication, the trust in each other, the clear policies for entry, retirement, and starting new ventures, you can see that the alignment keeps going down. So this is a serious concern even in normal times. And now in difficult times, it's even more dangerous situation. So what can family members do when you're under a crisis? So it's important to refine the rules of the game. Who will do what, how, and when? And I'll explain more in the following slides. So we have to keep aligning continuously. So is the leadership effective in the family and in the business? Are the ownership and inheritance policies fair? The multiple roles in business, who does what and how? In terms of a crisis, what are the options? What are the decisions that need to be taken? What's the need to change? Because that's really important. And finally, it's the reality that most families lack very clear policies and processes, or even if they are, the practice. And in such a situation, there's a danger that they may get gridlocked. So what to do process-wise? The first is a very clear process which is used and implemented for taking decisions. Use logical decision-making criteria, use goals, use the weighted average criteria, not a simple criteria, not simple weights. Find out the options, look at the evaluation of the various options and take a decision. So it looks logical, but more often than not, it doesn't happen. And that's why it's being mentioned here. As I mentioned, weighted average definitely improves the objectivity. Agree on the structure, the decision-making structure and processes. And finally, build a role clarity for information, advice, decision, and execution. So here is a very simple framework. So depending on, say, the family members are A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So depending on what decision area it is, you must decide who needs to be informed, who advice will be taken, who will decide, and who will execute that decision. If this framework is made ready and available, you will have less problems of alignment. Again, the governance is not just to be spoken about, but practiced. You need to have a code of conduct. You need to have policies and processes reflect on the practice of the same. Create your strategy on a whiteboard. A very important issue is that normally it's the dining table where all discussions happen. That's a very bad idea. You must take out time and sit in an office meeting room to discuss business issues and not just leave it to the default dining table for working out what could be the solution to the current problems or whatever decisions that need to be taken. This is a serious issue which most families, in spite of knowing, they keep doing it. And finally is, that the seniors must keep out a watch for the drop in communication quality. For example, some members of the family suddenly start keeping quiet. Now, obviously, there is something brewing in their mind which they're not sharing and which is important from the point of view of keeping the family together. So, to improve the practice of processes, the first thing which is suggested is you must discuss the code of conduct and values at every family meeting. Those are your guiding pillars. Follow the agenda, keep minutes. A 360-degree feedback and counseling helps. It may look very radical that, hey, how can the head of the family, say a Karta in an HUF, be given a 360-degree feedback? But if you don't, you will have lots of tremors, lots of people keeping quiet, lots of people not participating, and then finally a split. So this is a call that the family needs to take. Similarly, see what worked and what did not, and learn from that, which we do in corporate life all the time, and then rededicate to having a unified family and a business. That's our goal anyways. Now, coming to business issues, we discussed the family from the family governance point of view, what happens and what should be done. If we come to business issues, now here there will be many common things which are applicable equally or almost equally to many others. But the first is, if you look at your customers on two axes, on x-axis you have the criticality, the low criticality on the left and the high criticality on the right, and the content or discontent. Here I'm showing the discontent, the highly discontented customers at the top. Then this is the area, this is the quadrant that you need to focus on. And this is a learning that a family business or any other business need to see in today's situation. So always the importance in such difficult times is you need to have critical thinking. Don't assume anything which anyone says. Question the truth. Who said and how do they know that it is true? Please use the brain along with the ear. Don't just use the ear. We are all anyway subject to so much of news all the time. But please question the truth, especially when it is linked to your business. The next is, if you see all the calamities that have struck mankind and the economic world in the last, say, 70, 80 years, you will see that always there's a crisis which is followed by a climax. And you see all governments are in their own way making sure that they focus full time on the economy. So therefore, we need to have faith that there definitely will be, whether in 6 months or 1 year or more, a climax which will be at a higher level, followed by this extremely unprecedented crisis. So today's situation is negative. We all know production loss, supply chain, no cash flow. But I think we have to recuperate for resurrection. And for that, the most important thing is applying critical thinking and gearing up for change. Now, what do I mean by critical thinking? The first is, in this, question the obvious. We all need to look at our day-to-day business life and not take any assumption for granted. The second is question our approach. We are handling issues in a particular way. Is that the right way? We need to relook at it, and I'll explain more details in the following slide. And finally, we need to question our priorities. So if we do this, you will see many things will start unraveling, appearing in a new way which you never expected. Now, if you question the obvious, the points which come up is, what problem are we really solving, and are we doing it in the best way possible? What activities are we doing and can they be done in a better way? Or they will even be removed. For example, we are doing in a productive way, sales and manufacturing are the two productive functions. But you have quality control, you have control by finance, you have control by other departments, there is policing, there is follow-up. All those are waste. How much of that are we doing? And can that be reduced significantly? Again, what resources and time are we consuming and can they be optimized? And finally, most importantly, do we know what we know? Often, we take things for granted. In family businesses, there can be many significant strengths which accrue because of our being in business and successfully. Like I had shown in the first slide, we are always having, on an average, better margin, better growth, better market value. So there must be something to it. So don't assume that, look, that anybody else can do. May not be true. So we should try to figure out, do we know what we know? And then are we leveraging on what we know? The second one is in critical thinking is to question our approach. Are we doing sequential versus simultaneous? So which in the auto industry they call it simultaneous engineering or concurrent engineering. You may do work one at a time and then go to the next step, or you may do multiple steps. You have to figure out the approach, whether it's right or not. Whether you are reactive or proactive in your business issues. Chalta hai versus ideal. Now this is often in the Indian context seen. We have a reputation for not being as quality conscious as the Germans or as the Japanese or many others. But there are some very good examples from India where people are exporting things which are as good as the best anywhere in the world. So it is possible, but it's there in our mind as to what are we setting the bar at? Is it at a chalta hai level or at the best level? And finally, so many activities and so many budgets can be based on like last year or last week or last month or zero based. So we have to bring in a new approach in these difficult times. You need to do many of these important things on a zero based system. Again, continuing with critical thinking, you have to question the priorities. For example, inside versus outside. You have to understand that there will be many resources and results which exist outside. There will be opportunities, the same thing taken as an opportunity or a problem. You have to look at opportunities and make a good outcome out of that. And the third is whether you want to follow the status quo or you want to do things differently. So result can only come when you do things differently. If we do the same thing as we did last month and last year, how can the results be different? Results will be different when we do something differently. Gearing up for the change, so there are many new, concepts like trees where you talk about you replace or by and. Mostly we will tell our team members, we are using 6 people here, I want it to be reduced to 5 or 4. But the way to go about is reduce it to 5 and increase the output by 10% or 20%. So that is replacing or by and. The other points in the change is all the new mantras. What are they? Whether it's speed, scale, and skill. You have to look at the speed, what you were doing yesterday, what you can do today. What's the scale which you had earlier, and what's the scale you are planning for now? What's the skill level that you had built up till now, and what's the skill level that you will need going forward? Processes, systems, and reliabilities. Often in family businesses, a senior person may say, look, I have an eye on that issue. But if you want to build your business and delegate, you need to have processes, you need to have systems, so that even when you're not having your eye on that issue, it still delivers the same good result. And that brings more reliability. The new rules of the game are new business models and outsourcing. Often in family businesses, the loss of producing something by ourselves versus giving it to an outsider, a subcontractor or a supplier, is taken as a loss of profit, that we can do ourselves everything. But no, in the new world, you have to be very clear of how you can keep your investment to the lowest and outsource. Again, you need to pivot your business model. What worked earlier is not going to work now anymore. Your competitors are already doing it. If you don't do it, you will be much behind them. And with these new rules of the game, you can succeed in a far better way than you would be able to do otherwise. Finally, I think the two mega trends are very clear: the global perspective and the role of technology. Many family businesses have consciously, hello, can we mute please? So I'm saying many family businesses have often decided to not step out beyond a particular region. They may have to relook at that. And investment in technology, again, it is generally found that MNCs may be more prone to investing a lot of money in technology. It cannot be generalized, but I'm saying that in this world today, when everything is moving so fast, the role of technology is becoming even more and more important. And finally, I think we all know then when the paradigm shifts, everyone comes back to zero. So if we have had an advantage till now, after the crisis, it's possible we don't have an advantage. At the same time, in many areas where competitors were ahead of us, but with this earthquake plus tsunami of the coronavirus, everybody comes back to zero. So people who had an advantage over us, they are going to start at the same starting line. So we have a chance to do something different and improve and beat them this time if we could not beat them the last time. So this is what I mean when the paradigm shifts, everyone comes back to zero. The last part of my presentation is talking on the team, self, and business. And these are difficult times where work has entered our houses. You know, we're all seeing, you can see me, I'm in my home right now when I'm talking to all of you. And similarly, all of you are attending it from home. So work has entered home. So you have a situation where you are vulnerable, you are visible. So this is the time to be more human, to be more connected, to be more thinking all the time of your team members who are struggling just like you are struggling. It's not that you're not struggling, you're also adapting to the new situation. But this is the time when you need to be more human and you need to be more connected. So this is a very simple, meds is often used as a short form of medicine. Here it doesn't mean that, but it's just a new habit to form during these times. You must spend some time in meditation, some time in exercise, have a control on your diet, and of course, finally, sleep is the a subject today which is discussed so much that if you can say that one area where most of the owners and CEOs need to improve is in this area, because they often cut short, and sometimes that has many short and long-term consequences. If you look at from the point of view of the employees, they are wanting the leaders to be trustworthy, compassionate, stable, and hopeful. And we need to see whether, how do we look? How are we addressing them? Are we having a regularity in talking to them? And what do we say when we meet them? What do we do for them? Of course, your hands are tied. You don't have the profits that you had earlier. You don't have the cash flow that you had earlier, which the employees understand. But still, there are multiple areas where the business owners can do something which makes you look trustworthy, compassionate, stable, and hopeful. And that's what the employees are looking forward to. Uh, and this is a psychologist's view in terms of, what are the psychological needs of the people, especially at this time. First is autonomy. Everyone wants to control one's own behavior and the outcomes. The second is belonging. You need to have close relationships, feel that you are part of a nice team, and then feel free to express your troubles. So, if you have a way to take care of these needs, the last one is the competence, where you want to show your strengths and you want to play to them. You want to also develop new ones. So, on these, let's see uh, uh, if I can share some thoughts on these. The problem in case of autonomy is that the people are working in many different kinds of arrangements. Their children, their parents, and many of them, they need support. So at this time, they may need more freedom when and how they can work. So how do you support that? The danger is that in times of uncertainty and stress, you may end up by tightening the control, which is also known as micromanagement. Please avoid that. So that's as far as autonomy is concerned. On belonging, the work from home is limiting our sense of belonging. We need to sit in the coffee shop, we need to meet at the water cooler for 10 minutes, find out what's happening in the company. All that is not happening. So work from home is limiting our sense of belonging. So what do? We need to have activities to help the people to feel connected, and they are part of the team and the culture. Many companies are organizing antaksharis and so on, where even the CEO participates. And you can find what works for you and follow that. The danger here is that urgency can result in not supporting the employees and facilitating the community, which means you have so many tasks to do that this becomes less priority. And this is a danger in not taking care of belonging. And finally, for competence, the problem is that we need quick solutions to multiple issues that we are facing. And every day those issues change. So you may not be able to find the right employee for the task that you have on hand. So you give it to someone else who may or may not be equally competent. And that creates an issue. So the way out perhaps is to set them free to work on projects that engage them, make investment in developing their new skills and learning their new tools. So these are things which will help them enhance their competence. And when a recovery happens, as we all believe it would, so we would have a skilled and more engaged workforce. So this is from the team point of view. So it's not just we should do this, but I think we need to also check whether it's happening. So a very quick, simple survey on these four parts, can be done. Where are you senior leaders communicating as often, as compassionately, as clearly? Is your direct supervisor, your manager, helping you meet your need for autonomy? Is it is he creating a sense of belonging? And finally, how much is your supervisor helping you meet your need for competence? So these are not big surveys to be done by Gallup, but you can do a survey very quickly through yourself or your HR team to find out the pulse of the company and to see how the employees are feeling, because nothing can happen without them being on your side, without them feeling engaged, without them feeling a sense of belonging. So, like all so-called management gurus, I cannot close without giving you some mantras. Many of them you may already know, but build a cash buffer of 6 to 12 months without revenues. Incorporate in all your important contracts the force majeure clause. Look at combining functions. These days, people are talking about combining sales and marketing. So in your company, there may be two separate functions. And similarly, in many other functions, there is a big possibility of improvement by combining them. And that would require some cross-training. Cloud-based management software, business management software is almost a must for any medium and large company. This is obvious, investing in laptops so you are flexible and, spreading your sales channel and customer segment mix. You have to re-pivot whatever you are doing and whatever needs to be done. And that's something which you have almost no option to do when you are looking at business going forward. And finally, your business model may be revised maybe every week or every month. So be prepared to be really dynamic in looking at the business model. Otherwise, survival is very tough. So, for conclusion from my side for the family businesses, while the path is tough and uncertain, it's also full of opportunities. You could need a business continuity partner, especially for issues linked to cash and costs, because you cannot optimize costs without doing it intelligently. If you do it in a way that hurts you in the short, medium, or long term, then it's a problem. So therefore, you must do it intelligently. And again, the two critical issues of cash and costs are followed by customers and strategy. So you would need potentially a business continuity partner for that. From my side, happy to assist you. I have my email address given here as well as my phone number. From my side, I can say we'll help the family businesses rise and shine and step up and achieve their potential as they do globally and as they have been doing all this while. So I end with a Burmese proverb which says, in time of test, family is best. And I think most of you will agree with that. And with that, I close my presentation and over to Geeta for your questions.
So we have a few questions.
Yeah.
So the first one is, how does family business ensure scalability, especially when there are conservatives and expansionists together in the family?
Excellent question. And that's what, I was covering in the first part of my presentation. You have to do a huge amount of communication and convince internally, because without alignment, this is something which is not going to work. And it doesn't happen overnight, but somebody in the family has to take a lead in terms of looking at these things very objectively. The important thing is you have to work like a professional company in terms of looking at the scenario. What are the risks? Are those risks takeable or they are beyond the takeable risk? And if they are beyond, why they are beyond the level that the family would not like to take a risk? So I think it is most important that you don't discuss it on a dinner table, but discuss it in the office with a nice preparation of the pros and cons. And believe you me, if you look at it objectively, you have more than 90% chance you will get good alignment.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you, sir. The second question is by Shruti Gosavi. She says, even if a family business is professionally run, how can we convince our customers that we are professionally run?
Very good question. I think that sometimes can appear to be a drawback. If you are the customer, are you really looking at the structure of ownership or the people who come and meet you, whether they are the owner or the professionals? You are always looking at performance. And if your professionals are able to deliver the performance that the customers are looking for, believe you me, slowly, and you're not interfering in their work by calling up again to the same customer to check, whether the professionals are delivering or not. I think if the professionals are delivering and you give them a free hand, slowly to the customer, it won't really matter whether you are professionally run or you are a family-owned company. You are delivering, and that's what matters.
So the third question is, how do you keep separate your personal and professional life, and what would be the best practices?
I think business is a serious issue. Business is not something which we should do lightheartedly or as a as a hobby. And any serious issue requires professionalism. So I would say professionalism is basically bringing objectivity, bringing a fact-based discussion. So personal life, I'm defining, for example, as look, I want to go somewhere on a holiday or spend time with my children and so on. So the two things have to be kept absolutely separate. Maybe the questioner can explain what he or she has in mind in terms of how to keep it separate. What does he want to know? You can unmute
So the next
questioner.
question,
Okay,
the next question is, what is the best way to do succession planning?
I think the best way to do succession planning is to look at each capable member of the family and have preferably an outsider review their skills, their strengths, their competencies, and see what the business needs. If you know what the business needs and you know what kind of talent you have in-house, it will slowly become apparent to all of the family members that A or B or C is most equipped. So therefore, start with the business and what your business goals are. Start with the competencies required to achieve those business goals, and then see the talent that you have in-house. Somebody may not be very old, but may be very competent, or somebody may be ignored because of some politics in the past and so on, but may be very competent. If you are objective, if you know your goals, if you know the competencies required, I think you will reach a good solution.
So I am actually.
Sorry, can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me now?
No. Geeta,
Hello?
can you help?
Sorry, I could not unmute myself. That's why I could not take the next question.
No problem.
The next question is, how do you do if your succession plan does not work? And when should you decide to close down?
Very, very, very good question. I think it's a very pertinent question. Of course, if you are alert, you're always seeing signals that are appearing. Like I said earlier, if a family member is quiet on the dining table, hey, something is going on in his or her mind. Similarly, you can see the signals of performance. If your customer retention rate is coming down, your profitability is coming down. So you must watch for those signals and act before it's too late. That means you decided on a succession planning, you found person XYZ and made him or her the managing partner of the business, but it's not working out. So I think the family should get together and see the facts that we had thought from a 10% EBITDA will become 15%. But hello, while the market has gone up by 5%, we have come down by 1 or 2%. So we cannot always say, oh, we had a bad luck or whatever. The job of a CEO or a managing partner is to really build performance. So again, a very dispassionate, objective, hard look at the real performance of the succession planning, whoever was the person, compare it with the benchmarks, and then take the right decision. Exit before it gets too late.
So the next question is, how to stop procrastination of other family members?
So, always you need to have some amount of, compassion because many things happen in the family. Somebody felt slighted, somebody felt hurt, somebody felt humiliated. So the leadership in the family has to always follow the servant leadership principle, which means, they are serving the whole family by being leaders. So they have to bring together the other family members in multiple ways by seeing what's going on, having one-on-one discussions, and seeing where somebody has gone wrong. Can that be corrected, or can they accept it for this time, or find some other way in which the family remains together? And if it's not working out, find an acceptable outsider who everybody has trust in. And that's been followed by so many families. And he or she can again try to build the bridges and create a feeling of harmony and goodwill to the extent that is possible, so that the work doesn't get affected. So the idea is, you can't see into everybody's heart as to what that person is thinking, but you can certainly take action based on what is a lack of cooperation by a family member and address it.
So the next question is, should there be any overlap on functions when there are multiple family members in the company, or should they have a clear demarcated role?
I think we all know that even in the kitchen, too many cooks can spoil the broth. So I think it's better, all of us, like I said in the presentation, we like autonomy. So whether it's a family member or whether it's a professional, we like to do something maybe in our way and feel good about it, that I produced or delivered something. When there are multiple people overlapping and so on, I think you're sowing the seeds of potential confusion and discord. Who will take the blame? Who will take the credit? And so on. On the face of it, it looks avoidable, but really one needs to see in detail the circumstances.
The next question is, in small scale, how to handle and track workers' performance as standards of excellence changes from generation to generation?
I think you have to first decide who's in charge. So if somebody is in charge of the works operations or the factory operations, something was being done in the earlier generation. So the earlier owner, say the father, knew every worker by first name, and maybe he was helping him out at the time of marriage or something else, functions, by some loan or some money and so on. Maybe as you grow bigger, that personal touch is bound to come down, and therefore the same thing which worked 20 years back doesn't work now. So even the millennials today have a different mindset, whether they are workers or whether they are IT employees and so on. So therefore, we have to constantly change our operating software. And therefore, the person who is in charge now must see what worked earlier and why, but make a change to what is required today and why, and convince the other family members, because somebody may be hurt. Okay, in our family, we always used to give a loan to a worker when he was getting married, and now this new generation has stopped it. Yeah, they're stopping it, but I'm saying it's good to discuss some of these important things inside the family and convince them and then move forward. That would be my suggestion.
Shall I take a few more questions?
Yes, we have time, we can take.
Okay. So somebody has suggested that, can you suggest presentations or literature for process to hand over business to the next generation?
Okay, I think there are many in this case. Maybe offline, Geeta, I will suggest to you, and they can, take it from you. So there's a lot of literature on family business, and I'm sure, depending on the specific need, we can suggest something.
Sure. Now the next question is, the lower rung staff in family businesses, especially the smaller ones, generally have low accessibility to the promoters. The overall transparency is also low in a family-owned business for such staff. Information is privy only to the close confidants. How could the promoters change such a situation?
the question is, why do the promoters want to change the situation? So obviously, there are some things happening. Let's say employee engagement is not high enough, or there are some other issues, which is why they want to have a relook. So if we know what that cause is, what those new straws in the wind are, what those new issues are, which are forcing the promoters to have a rethink, I think based on that, a good answer can be found, because every employee seeks engagement. Every employee wants to belong. Every employee wants to have some degree of autonomy in his or her sphere of work. Those are basic psychological needs. So we have to fulfill those needs, or we are sowing the seeds for either lack of performance or a very tough union or some other issues which will come up in due course if they haven't come up till now. If we are done with the
Can I
question,
continue?
no, we can continue. If there are questions, yeah, sure.
Okay. So if the family members have different ways of working in a family business, which conflict, how does one tackle it?
Say again, can you please repeat?
If the family members have different ways of working in the business, which conflict, how does one tackle it?
Yeah. So this is again a very usual occurrence which happens in the family businesses, because the dynamics keep changing, and there is no silver bullet. There's no magic answer to this. There has to be communication. There has to be a time found out by everybody to sit together and gradually build the trust and make sure that people start talking to each other and ensuring that that talking is not just one way but two ways, and then find resolution. And again, in many such cases, you may end up seeking the services of an outsider whom people trust, and therefore he is able to break the deadlock.
So the next question is.
Okay, last two questions. I think we were to finish
Okay.
at 6 o'clock, right?
6:20, yes. So this is from a lady.
Hey.
She says, sir, I've heard that you should be seeing a legal
washing machine
aspect,
मध्ये पुढे foam का
seeing the
दिसतो
legal aspect as well before starting the family business. If they are husband and wife, even if they are husband and wife.
Just repeat if you don't mind the question.
This question is, we have heard that you should be seeing we should be seeing legal aspect before starting a family business, even if it is a husband and wife.
Well, I think it's a difficult question for a third party to answer, whether you should be having a legal. If you look at the US, even every marriage has a legal agreement, whereas it's still not the norm in India. So I think it depends on the particular situation, and if one side, whether the husband or the wife, is feeling some discomfort in moving without it, then I think it should be there. But in many of the traditional Indian houses, even the word legal agreement between husband and wife can create many ripples. So I don't know what's a good answer to that.
So can you highlight a few do's and don'ts for family business?
Oh, I think the whole presentation was for that. I think, let me summarize. I think the first thing is family governance, which is linked to clarity, having a family constitution, having a method to follow that constitution, and having ways to continuously resolve conflict, because you have seen the largest of families, how they have split and how they have suffered, whether it's the, Singh brothers in Delhi, or, there's so many other cases I don't know the name. So therefore, constant communication, and which is true in any relationship. So therefore, it's important to have that constant communication and keep doing the dialogue. So that's on the do side. I think on the don't side is basically we often start judging people without understanding them. So therefore, keep your stereotypes or keep your prejudgments to yourself. Don't express them, but just go by facts. I think, like all relationships, investing time and not having prejudgments and stereotypes are really important things to build the trust element, and not letting that trust element dissolve over a period of time. I think that's really very, very important.
So the last question of the day.
Okay.
After that, we won't trouble you.
No. If there are any important questions, good questions, I'm happy to do it.
So if there are multiple children in the next generation, is it better to have one leader or joint MD structure?
I think it depends also on it depends also on the capability of the children and on the size of the business. If the business size is so small that you don't need two people as joint MDs, and I'm assuming the father continues as the MD, then there's a problem. Again, if the capability levels are significantly different, then again, your decision is not based on facts and merit. If one child has the capability to run that business, which is significantly higher than the other child, I think that child should be having a greater right to run that business as joint MD or whatever.
But what if they are equally competent?
Yes, I think if they are equally competent and the business is large enough, sure, and they have a good working relationship and trust amongst each other, you can separate the functions. One person can look at, for example, operations, purchase, and so on. One can look after marketing, finance, and other, for example, commercial activities. So you can find some nice way to split up and having them together. Sure, it's not necessary that you have to, split this in a way. And if both of them are competent, yes, and then look at ways to use their competence by going into new business and new lines and so on. That will be really a win-win situation.
Okay, I think I have one last question and I will just take it.
Okay.
Sorry for the bother, but
not at all.
Since I think people are so enthusiastically asking you questions,
No problem.
I will just take this one,
Sure.
this last one. So, any advice for the employees of the family-run business where good employees coming from an organized job are unable to cope up with the ways of family-run business?
I think this is really more to do with your own mindset with which you are used to working, and I'm sure when you came into the company, you came with open eyes. You did some checking before you came in, and if you did not, then then it's a little price that you have to pay for for coming into a new environment with a new operating system, which is quite different from what you are used to. So you have to have a frank chat. Are they really valuing your competence and knowledge so much that they're willing to change slightly at least to accommodate you and the way you work? Or you're not having that kind of strength where you can, to some extent, let me say, dictate your terms. Then I guess then the only way is to look at other options.
So I don't know what to say, but I'm getting a few more questions. What do I do?
Sure. No, please, let's do it.
Okay. So how to make the experienced staff accountable in the current situation when they have resistance to it and the next generation does not have a succession to them?
Just repeat. I think the second part of the question is not so clear.
Okay. How to make the experienced staff accountable in the current situation when they have resistance to it and the next generation does not have a succession to them?
Maybe does not have an access to them.
Access to them, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I think this is a very nice question, and it just shows that the the bringing in of the younger generation has perhaps happened too soon, and may not be with enough planning, because or there's another option that the younger generation is not sensitive to the existing culture of the place. So I think in both these things, we have to reflect that uh, sometimes, everybody in the world is expected to prove their merit, whether it's in a professional company or in a family-owned business. And that's why I have been saying all the while that more competent family members should always get more responsibility. So if a younger generation has come in, we have to counsel them that treating old, experienced people with respect is far better. And I can assure you, respect always begets respect. But if you are treating people like commodities, if you're treating people like they are dispensable, and you are the owner by virtue of your father having started the company, I think you are really not going to succeed anywhere, because this is a fundamental, absolutely human value, and especially in today's world, as we discussed earlier, that respect and keeping the people together is so critical. So I think it's important for this younger generation to get some coaching, to get some more training, to get some more sensitization, try it out, and also maybe some counseling to the senior staff that look, be a little patient, and these younger generation will improve with time. But eventually, maybe you'll have to take a call that whether they can run this business or they can't run the business, because without people, you cannot run your business. It's as simple as that.
So I think that's it.
Okay.
I had one question, but
Please.
I don't know whether I should ask.
You must ask.
So I just wanted to know, do family business need to be professional? Of course, the answer is yes. Even I know that. But
You want to hear from me? Okay.
yes.
So I think we all know that today's business, more and more, is so much customer driven. It is so much value driven. It is so much driven by clarity, by goals, by continuous improvement, and so on. So family gives you a stability of people, of relationships, of commitment, of hopefully passion, and many times alignment. But uh, if and professionalism basically means being objective, being data driven, being customer focused, being objective driven. So I think it's not one or the other. I would like to say and end by saying family businesses, so many of them have professionalized and gained a lot and increased their size hundreds of times by being professional. So it's not either or, but each family has to decide at what speed to do, when to do, and so on. So I hope with that, I wish all the family businesses all success. And I really enjoyed uh, all the questions that were raised by the participants. And I thank Geeta and the team and MCCIA for this opportunity to talk to all of you.
So thank you very much for this interesting session. I think we really had a lot of questions today. I hope all the questions were answered, according to what you were expecting.
Yes, I hope so.
So thank you very much. And I thank all the audience here on behalf of MCCIA. We look forward to seeing you at many more sessions on this e-session gateway. So thank you very much.
Thank you once again to everyone, and bye-bye for now.